right. For those of you who don't know me, I am Paige Wilson. I am the College and Career Counselor at Montgomery High School. And I am very happy to be here with our presenter, Angela Davis. Before I hand it over to her, I'm just going to go over a few details here, logistics. So the chat has been disabled. However, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A and we will try to address as many as we can. In the chat, I will be putting a few links. We're going to try and make this a little interactive. So just keep an eye on that. And again, any questions you have, please throw them in the Q&A, and thank you for coming. So now I'm going to hand it over to our lovely presenter, Angela Davis.
Hi, everyone. So nice to be here. It's a little bit strange because I can't see you all, but I will just trust that some of you are there. So today we're going to talk about the Enneagram. And this is my first time teaching it so quickly, but we're going to go through it together. So I work at Santa Rosa Junior College, and I've been doing career counseling and program development for a lot of years, but I'm especially passionate about helping people to learn about themselves and discover where that we all fit in the world. And I think the Enneagram is a really exceptional tool just to be able to really learn more about our strengths, but also about our blind spots. So let's go through it together. All right, so the purpose of today is I'm going to give you all just a real brief overview of the system and hopefully help you to see the real depths and potentials for growth. It's a lot of information, so don't feel like you have to hold all of it right now. The best thing you can do is really just get comfortable and maybe start to get a little bit introspective and reflective and just start to really notice the patterns. And if you're a note taker, you might want to just grab a pad and a pen to kind of start to jot down some things that really just stand out for you. So what is the Enneagram? A lot of people have heard about it, and most of us still don't really know that much about it. But really, it's a personality system that explains how and why that we see the world differently. There's a lot of assessment tests, and the Myers-Briggs, I'm imagining some of you have taken that, is another really good assessment test to figure out what your strengths are. The Enneagram takes it a step further in that it really gives us the reasons why that we do the things that we do. And the whole philosophy behind this is that the reason there's so much conflict and clashing in the world is because we don't realize that we're actually seeing the world from 9 basic different perspectives. It's almost like we're playing by 9 different rules, and we have 9 very different, distinct purposes. And so this can help us to not only start to illuminate more about who we are, but also who others are. And so it's really helpful with family and friends and just in a lot of different arenas. Where did it come from? This is fascinating. Basically, we don't know. There's different theories. Some people believe that it came around, I think, the 1300s. And it actually started, there's a lot of ruins that have the Enneagram symbol on it. But most of the research that we found has actually been from monks. So it started more in the spiritual traditions, and initially it was pretty coveted and kept really secret, and then started to really emerge in the States around the 70s, the 1970s. How can the Enneagram help me? Basically, once we learn and start to understand how that we work, can potentially become more free. A lot of these systems, people are worried, which I was too, like I don't want to be put in a box, but they say that the Enneagram is actually telling us that we're already in a box and we don't even know it. And so the purpose of it is to free us from the box that we may already be in. Okay. And actually, Paige, this one doesn't have the quiz on it, and I can't remember. Is it time for the quiz? I think it might be.
I think so.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is in the chat, I'm going to put a link to a very abbreviated version of this test. So if we want to all take, it's 2:07. I think we'll take 5 minutes to go through it, and if you don't get through it, feel free to keep going, because it is important to give answers that feel like they resonate with you. So I did put that link in the chat. Feel free to kind of take 3 to 5 minutes, and we'll take that, and then Angela will go over some of the results.
And just remember, everyone, there's no right answer, and this may not be even your number, but it's a good starting point. So just answer real quickly and just use your intuition.
I also wanted to mention that it is possible, once we're discussing things a little bit later on, if you feel uncomfortable sharing your type, or you have a question about your type, there is the option to do an anonymous question in the Q&A. So you don't necessarily need to reveal who you are or what type you are. Okay, it looks like someone can't open the link. Is anyone else having an issue with that? Chris, can you open it?
Yes, I was able to open it, and I just put it again in the chat just in case folks are just joining us.
Okay, so it looks like you might just have to scroll down a little bit. Hopefully the page loads, and then you just have to scroll down a little bit for the quiz. So we'll give it maybe one more minute or so. And we can share this PowerPoint, and this is being recorded. So, if you're still working on taking that test, you can always come back and hear what Angela has to say about your type.
And at the end of the quiz, yeah, definitely make sure you just write down the number. And again, as Paige mentioned, it's personal. And so you can keep it to yourself.
Okay. Well, I think people are starting to wrap up here. So, Angela, why don't we get going a little bit?
Okay. All right. So let's see. All right. So I just wanted to show you a few images, and we're going to go through the numbers, but this is the Enneagram. So this is the image of the 9 different types. And so this is going to kind of be the beginning. We give names to each number, but the names are still very limited. This is a very deep system that some people have studied for 20, 30, 40 years, and they say that they're still learning about it. So we will just scratch the surface, but One thing I want you all to realize if you are interested in going deeper in this is that the Enneagram is meant to be a moving system. So for example, if you just took the quiz and you found out that you're an Enneagram type 8, every type has an urge. Every type has a desire, a drive towards basically using their gift in the world. And so the type 8, that would mean that that type has an urge towards leadership and towards protection. The type 9 has an urge towards unity, a desire for peace. And the arrows are really interesting because they give us information on how to balance out our type, because the idea is that it's really easy to overdo our type, and we can go into stress and become unhealthy and not even know how to get out of it. Okay, so let's start to go through the numbers. So the number 8 that I'm sure some of you got today, I was looking for some pictures and, they might not all resonate with you, but really what I wanted to convey is that the 8 is really powerful. The 8 has a lot of energy. The 8 is definitely known as the leader of the Enneagram and is very powerful. So the Enneagram 8 is called the challenger as well. They're powerful, they're protective, they're honest, and they're willful. I made a note over here for some of the best careers: business owner, CEO, headhunter, consultant. What's really fascinating to me that I wish I would have known when I was in high school and your age is that you want to really know what the worst careers are as well. So I like how it says here, retail and customer service. But what's really important for the 8 is that the 8 cannot work for someone that they don't respect. And I actually have a lot of type 8s in my family, and most of them work for themselves. So it's kind of interesting. If you go over here and you look with the growth, so what the 8 is working for is their ideal is truth. So that's where they have a lot of energy. Every number has a different amount of energy, but the 8 has a ton of it. So they're looking for truth, and they're looking to protect, and they're actually looking to be protected, but they don't know that they can be protected. So they're doing it. Their desire is independence. Their weakness is desire or lust, which means they just have a very strong passion for life. They have an intensity. And so an 8 usually can't creep into a room. You feel them. It's a very strong energy, and it's their strength, but it can become their weakness. Their growth is for the idea is that the 8, in order to balance out all that strength and all that intense energy, is to move towards their own innocence. And so the movement is for them to lean and move towards the type 2, which is the helper. And the type 2 knows how to be innocent. And so when you see Enneagram type 8s who work the system and they balance out that strength with innocence, they can get to a place that's actually pretty powerful and gentle at the same time. And so it's really helpful to know this part. The next type is the type 9. So these are the images that I found to give you a quality or a sense of what they're looking for. They're known as the peacemaker. They're easygoing, humble, open, content, good listeners. They're looking for calm. Their best careers: therapist, a photographer, because they're seers, mediators, guidance counselors. And the worst careers are ones where there's conflict. Their desires, so their ideal is love. And that's what they're best at. They're looking for unity. They're looking for peace. Their desire is stability. Their weakness is self-forgetting, which is interesting. So if you're a type 9, that would mean it's really easy for you to be there for others, but it might be hard for you to actually be there for yourself. And so the 9s have a tendency to give too much and support others and forget about supporting themselves. The way to balance all that giving is for the 9 to learn how to take right action for themselves. And that is the movement, which is the type 3. So the type 3 is brilliant at right action. And that's where they need to move in order to grow. Okay. How are we doing, Paige?
Good.
We're good? Okay.
We're getting some questions.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that we're able to go over all the types.
Okay.
So I was thinking that maybe we could reassess on time after we've gone through a few more, and then maybe do a couple of questions and go from there.
Sounds good. Okay. Yeah, because this is a lot of information, and I'm going to give you all my email at the end too. So feel free to also reach out to me too.
And also, Angela, if it's okay, I can share this PowerPoint as well.
Definitely.
So you can always reference it too.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Okay, so now we move on to the type 1. So the type 1, they're the reformer. They're the idealist. Their strength is order, fairness, independence, leadership. They're basically the good judge. They're the judge we want to go in front of. They know how to balance integrity. They're really good at being impartial and being able to assess what's really fair. And it's what they stand for. The great careers for them: attorney, teacher, politics, advocate. Worst careers: daycare, waitressing, comedian. Their growth, so basically the 1 is looking for perfection. That's what they make their life entirely about. Their desire is all about integrity. And so they put a lot of pressure on themselves. So you're the type 1. Most ones have a very strong inner critic, and they think that that's actually themselves, but it is part of their operating system. So they're pushed very hard internally. So this falls into their weakness. Their weakness is anger. Because they're so hard on themselves, they can end up becoming very hard on other people, and they feel that it's not okay for them to be angry. So they push down that anger, and it leaks out as resentment. Their growth is peace, and they need to learn from the type 7. So the next one is the type 2. The type 2 is the helper. You can see from the images, it's all about 2, which is really interesting. The 1 is 1, it's independent. The 2 needs another person, it's relational. So they're all about kindness, consideration, balance. Of course, their best careers: social worker, nurse, humanitarian. The worst careers are salesperson, bookkeeper, a judge. Their growth, what they're looking for is freedom, which is interesting. Their desire is love. So all day long, they're actually moving and looking for love. Their weakness is pride, which is ironic, but it's because they give and they forget or put aside their own needs. So they have this pride in acting as though they have no needs. So that's their growth. They need to become more modest and learn from the type 4 and start to express more of those needs in order to be more whole, because they can give way too much of themselves and get very exhausted. Now we move on to the type 3. So I like these pictures. I feel like it really captures the 3, the race car driver. The number 3 is all about speed. They're all about accomplishment. So they're the achiever. They're all about communication, self-expression, and forward moving. I have a lot of 3s in my life also, and they've got long to-do lists, and they don't want to get stuck. Everything is about growth. They're like the triathlete. They're the ones that know how to push themselves hard. They have a lot of self-discipline. And so they're impressive. Great careers: sales, public relations, performer. Worst careers are basically anything that's slow: a therapist, anything service industry, which is interesting, or a ghostwriter, because there wouldn't be enough feedback as a ghostwriter, because they need to have feedback for their accomplishments. Their ideal for their growth is to achieve. Their desire is to be valued, to be seen. Their weakness is self-deceit, which means that they actually become so competent in this arena, and they start to become the role, and they actually forget their human side. So their growth is truth, and they need to move towards the type 6 to learn more about it. The next one is the type 4, the artist. So they're sensitive, they're expressive, creative, and dramatic. The best careers, obviously, artist, writer, counselor. The worst careers, a corporate desk job, a police officer. Their growth, their ideal is originality. They want and desire to be authentic. They fear being ordinary. Their weakness is envy and discontent, which can be really hard for them. The 4 is also very focused on the past. They're focused on their own emotions, and they can get stuck in them. So their growth is to lean more towards equanimity, which means to become more balanced in their emotions, and basically to kind of take that motto on of it just is what it is, and to learn from the type 1 and to start moving forward. The next type is the type 5. So this is the thinker, the observer. They're thoughtful, cerebral, perceptive. They're the best professors, scientists, analysts, researchers. They're not going to be as interested in sales or marketing. Their ideal is all-knowing. Their desire is to be useful, and their fear is uselessness. So their weakness is interesting, is hoarding resources. The 5 doesn't have as much energy. So every number, as I said, has a certain amount of energy. The 5 doesn't have as much. So they hoard their time, their energy, and their money. And they want time alone so that they can just study and learn, because it's really what they're here to do and what they're best at. Their growth is to learn from the type 8 and to not be so attached to their time and energy and resources, to be more giving with it and more trusting. All right, I hope you guys are all with me. I know we're going quick, but we're almost through. Type 6, this is the type 6 is the most common, but also the most complex. So this is the loyalist. They're reliable, they're hardworking and responsible. They're usually really funny, which I think is interesting. And it's the 6 actually has the most anxiety. Every number has its own emotion that we're dealing with, but the 6, because they have so much anxiety, I think they end up turning it towards humor, which is a really good thing to do. The best careers for them, the 6, because they're the loyalist, they're great principals. Your principal right now might be a 6. They're good team leaders. They're good home inspectors, because their mind is on safety and order. That's what they're here for. Their worst careers are to become an investor, a stockbroker. And this is interesting. If you got a 6, this means you don't want a job where that they ask you to put your career before family. So family is really important for the 6. And then also the 6, I put a picture of all these meerkats, because they actually like to travel together in groups because they're so security and safety minded, which I think is fascinating. My sister has 6 in her as well. If you go deeper in the system, you'll find out not only are you 1 initially, you later will find you have 2 other ones. So my sister always travels around with at least 6 to 12 people with her. And so that's like a 6 thing to do, which is interesting. The ideal for 6 is faith. They want to know that they're looking to feel safe in the world. And they want to feel that they can trust the people in their lives, their employers, their family. They fear isolation. Their weakness is fear, which ends up coming out as anxiety. So they can a lot of times challenge authority, and they can get in trouble. That's also what they're meant to do. Their growth is courage. So they can actually be learning from that, and they need to move more towards the type 9, which can have more trust in the world. The last number is type 7. If you got this one, and these images really capture it pretty well, I think. So the 7 is the adventurer. They're very fast paced. They have high energy, very innovative, creative. Basically, their main skill is their future focus. They've got a ton of energy, and they're really good at seeing the patterns and having a really quick, sharp mind and seeing what's to come. They're daring, but they can be scattered, and they can have a hard time with detail. So the best careers for them, or anything that's basically broad: travel, life coach, entrepreneur. Worst careers, details: bookkeeper, wedding planner, a doctor. Basically, a 7 doesn't want a job where you have to show up the same way every day, because the 7's all about variety. Their ideal is new experiences. The desire for a 7 is variety. This is interesting. The fear is pain or boredom. So every number is, we're all running from a fear. So the 7 does not want to be bored because they don't want to feel pain. Because of that, the 7 can get into trouble and can become really gluttonous for new ideas, new experiences. There's a lot of 7s that can become addicts. Also, because it's just like, it's that whole motto of, live the day, live for the day, experience all you can. So their growth is sobriety, and to learn how to like be more still and more centered in themselves, and to learn from the type 5 and how to do that. And so that we did it. There's a couple minutes left.
So a few logistical things here. Angela, you mentioned putting your email address out. I can do that if you'd like me to. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat. And I'm also going to put a link to a PDF version of this PowerPoint. And then we can dive right on into questions. So there are quite a few of them. So like I said, I put her email in the chat, and then also it looks like maybe that link is not working. Actually.
These are great questions. I was just taking a peek.
Oh, good. Okay.
Did you want to read them, Paige, or do you want me to?
Sure, yeah.
Go for it.
That. So I think maybe we'll address some of the general ones first. And one of the questions was, can your type change?
That's a great question. So no. Typically, once we do find our type, which can take a while, some people know right away that's me, and some people, it might even take 6 months, a year to figure out which one is you. Because the idea is that a lot of this is unconscious, and a lot of it we're blind to. It's how we were born, and we assume that everybody else is living how we are. So it takes some time, but we do have it all through our life.
Okay, and I think Angela mentioned this before, but the more research you do on it, the more you'll find. I think she mentioned that you can have sort of like a subtype or a triple type. So there's a lot of complexity to this as well. So I think this test that you took today was a very abbreviated version, and so yeah, there's a lot behind it.
It goes much deeper. It goes much deeper. So if you got the 2 and you're thinking that's too simplistic, it probably is too simplistic. There's going to be a lot more nuance and shades once you dive in much deeper.
Yeah, which I think addresses one of the questions that it said, maybe if you've taken this test before and you got a different type, potentially those 2 types could be, what would you say, Angela, maybe part of the tri-type?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And then there was a question actually about someone who took the Myers-Briggs and how that result might relate to this result.
Yeah, so that's another great question too. So there is some overlap between the Myers-Briggs, and if you know your type, there's going to be a connection. There will be a connection, and it's actually a good idea to study both. And so I would say, reach out to me, and I can tell you a little bit more about how to do that. But there is a connection, and it is neuroscience. So they're starting to realize that it is actually how our brains are wired.
So I had a separate question from someone beforehand about, what if I get a type I don't necessarily like?
Yep. So that's a great one. Usually they say is that usually the one type we don't want to be, there's a high likelihood that that's what we are. And so if you don't like it, don't worry about it. Just keep reading and basically just try it on and just read about it and just kind of let the light bulb go on and start to have some awareness while you're able to see, do I do that? And start to ask yourself, what's the motive for it? If we know the fear, it's going to give us a clue. And it'll start to make sense. But every type has its own brilliance, and every type is so needed.
Thank you. So just we're over time. We're at 2:32. If we want to stay on for a few more minutes, up to you, Angela.
I'm happy to stay if anyone has some more questions.
Okay, sure. And then just a quick side note, Chris Catelli just put, if you need credit for attending this session, he did put a Google form in the chat for you to fill out. Okay, so let's look at a few more questions here. What about, okay, I know my type, and I'm interested in maybe a career that I don't know whether it applies. What do I do with this information?
You mean say that? I'm sorry, I'm not sure I caught it.
So if let's say I came out as a type 2, it doesn't really connect with me, but I'm interested in looking at maybe a career that's in there. What are the next steps? What can I do after that?
Yeah, so if you're not resonating with the number, there's a lot you can do with it. I would say a good first step is to just even go online on Google and just start to type in that number, type Enneagram 2 strengths and careers, and just start to read and explore and ask people in your life who you trust a little bit about how they see you as well, and what jobs they see you doing, and what strengths they see you having. And so you might get some more feedback in that way.
Thank you. So we had a couple of upvotes for a question about a type 3 and what emotion a type 3 tends to turn to. It sounds like they might be interested in being an event planner or a flight attendant, and they're just wondering what you think about how that might work.
That's a great question. So every number has an emotion that we're dealing with. So it gets a little bit deep and complex, but basically we're all either dealing with fear, anxiety, fear, anger, or shame. Type 3 is dealing with shame, but the type 3 is so positive and is so focused on joy and positivity that the 3 pushes that emotion down. And so the type 3 may be completely unaware of that shame. And so kind of more to your question, at least for right now, I would say joy and positivity are their biggest strengths that they're putting out into the world. And a flight attendant or an event planner, I think would be great for a type 3 because they're both very, very public. And the type 3 shine any place where that they are dealing with a lot of people. It's their gift to have exceptional customer service, to be very welcoming and very positive, and to really connect with people really quickly. And their super talent is reading the room. They can quickly assess how other people feel. So that's their superpower. And that's why they're so good on stage. So a flight attendant and an event coordinator, they both need to be able to quickly assess how are people feeling, and then they can adapt faster than any other Enneagram type.
Okay. And I think just for the sake of time, we'll try to wrap it up here in the next 4 minutes. I have 2 questions. And then we'll just sort of, additional questions. Hopefully we can get to those. I would encourage you to reach out to your college and career counselor or reach out to Angela with her email address. But in the meantime, the first question is, can you be in between 2 types?
That's another great question. So this is another way that the Enneagram goes very deep. The idea is that, let's say we're a type 2. Every type is actually borrowing the strengths from their neighbor. So the type 2 is borrowing the strengths of the 1 and the 3. And the idea is if you came up as 1, you might think you're the other one. And then back to that system that I showed you, the Enneagram with all the arrows. So you might be the type 2, but you also have access to another type according to where the arrows are pointing. So the type 2 is connected to the neighbors and then also connected to the other numbers that the arrows are pointing towards. So I hope that that answers a little bit of your question, but feel free to reach out and I can tell you more.
Yeah. And then I guess our last question for today will be, someone asks, how accurate is this?
Yeah, it's another good question. So, I think it's as accurate as you want it to be. And it's going to give you as much information as you're willing to put time and attention towards it. So if you take some time and really learn about it and yourself, it's pretty accurate. It's pretty phenomenal, the results. And for me, doing career counseling for so many years, I think that this is something that it should be taught to people in middle school and high school. So if you learn this now, you're going to be way ahead of the rest of us. It's going to save you a lot of time. It's going to help you have peace, more peace with yourself, but also with the people in your life, and find a much better career to suit you.
All right. Well, I think that will wrap it up. If you're having issues with the PDF that I put in the chat, if you copy and paste it, I know it's not linked, but if you copy and paste it and put it into a browser, it will work. We will also try to put some of these resources on the website as well, so keep a lookout for that. Angela, thank you so much for everything, and everyone, thank you for attending today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.